we're so plugged in these days. We're just,
Right.
like constantly relying on technology and all these complicated systems we don't even think about.
It's true. It's easy to forget there are other ways of living.
I mean, think about the Amish communities. Talk about self-sufficient, right? They've got these skills they've honed for generations.
Skills that build a different kind of resilience.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today. This idea of how those skills can translate to more, well, security and personal empowerment for everyone.
So to guide our exploration today, we have this fascinating article from Homestead How To. It's called 15 Amish Skills We Should All Learn to Thrive in Uncertain Times.
Thrive. I love that. It's not just about getting by.
Right. It's about finding a sense of control no matter what craziness the future might throw at us.
And look, I know we're not all going to pack up and join an Amish community tomorrow, right?
Probably not.
But there are definitely some valuable nuggets we can extract from their way of life.
Absolutely. And that's our mission for this deep dive, to unpack those principles and see what we can learn from them.
Okay, so let's start with something pretty fundamental, something we all deal with every single day, food.
Oh yeah, food.
This article talks about how the Amish have this incredible mastery of canning and preserving food.
Yeah.
Now, to some folks, it might seem like just an old-fashioned chore, but honestly, when you think about it, it's a pretty powerful way to take control of your own food supply, right?
It really is. And what's fascinating about the Amish approach is how holistic it is. It's not just about sticking some stuff in a jar and hoping for the best.
Right.
They understand the entire process, everything from how to select the perfect produce at peak ripeness to the techniques for sealing those jars for long-term storage.
No freezer required.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, this could mean learning to preserve those seasonal fruits and vegetables, cutting down on food waste, and having those delicious homegrown options available year-round.
That's so smart, and this makes so much sense, right?
It really does. And they often have these unique methods that have been passed down for generations. Things like relying on natural pectin levels or specific heating techniques.
It's like a whole science.
It is a deep understanding of food science that's been developed over centuries without needing fancy labs or equipment.
And that actually leads perfectly to the next skill. The article highlights gardening.
Ah, yes, their gardens are legendary.
The Amish are famous for their gardens, right? I mean, they grow so much of their own food, especially heirloom varieties.
Absolutely.
To them, it's way more than a hobby.
It's a way of life, really.
Yeah. And what's interesting is how successful they are at it. So what is it that makes their gardening so effective? And more importantly, what can we learn from it, even if we only have a tiny balcony or a little patch of yard?
Well, a lot of it comes back to understanding their environment. They've learned to work with nature instead of against it. They save their own seeds, generation after generation.
Yeah.
So they end up with these varieties that are perfectly suited to their specific climate and soil. And they practice crop rotation and natural pest control.
So it's all about sustainability and resilience, right?
Exactly. And even if you're in a small space, you can still apply those principles. Look into container gardening, learn about the importance of soil health, or choose plants that naturally thrive where you live.
Makes sense.
It's all about building that connection with your food source.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The article mentions something you might not immediately associate with self-sufficiency soap making.
Oh yeah, soap?
The Amish are known for making their own natural soap. Why is that such a valuable skill?
Well, think about it. When you make your own soap, you're in complete control of what goes into it, right?
Oh.
No harsh chemicals, no weird fragrances or unnecessary additives. And honestly, the process is often much simpler than people think. Basic ingredients, fats, lye, essential oils, that's often all it takes.
And for our listeners, this could mean not only having a gentler product for your skin, but it's also about understanding what goes into the things you use every day.
Exactly. Have you ever really looked at the ingredient list on a bar of soap? Making your own can be a real eye-opener.
Now, the article also talks about animal husbandry, raising animals for food, milk, fiber.
Right.
That feels like a pretty big leap for most people.
Yeah.
So what are some key takeaways from this, even if we're not all about to go buy a cow?
Well, I hear you. It's definitely not for everyone. But even understanding the basics of animal husbandry can be valuable. It helps us connect with where our food and materials really come from. The Amish, they have this deep knowledge of animal care, nutrition, and how to raise livestock humanely and sustainably.
Yeah, it's all connected.
It is. And for our listeners, this could mean making more informed choices about the food you buy, understanding the work and resources that go into it.
It's about appreciating the whole process.
Exactly. And maybe even considering smaller scale options like, backyard chickens for eggs or something like that.
Okay, let's move on to something the Amish are super well known for. Their woodworking.
Their craftsmanship is
I
incredible.
know, right?
Yeah,
And they do it all without relying on those fancy power tools that most woodworkers use.
it's really impressive.
Their woodworking is all about precision, durability, and this deep understanding of the wood itself. It's about creating things that last.
Yeah, built to stand the test of time.
Exactly. So how can our listeners apply this even if they aren't master craftspeople?
Well, even learning basic woodworking skills can be incredibly empowering.
Like for what?
Simple home repairs, building shelves, things like that, gives you that sense of self-reliance and a greater appreciation for quality. And think about this. The Amish are also masters of repairing and repurposing wood. So there's a strong sustainability element there too.
Minimizing waste.
Absolutely.
Okay, who doesn't love a gorgeous Amish quilt?
They are beautiful.
The article mentions that they're not just decorative, though.
Right. They're actually functional.
They're meant to be used. They're warm, handmade bedding. So what's the value here?
Well, for me, what's fascinating about quilting is the way it blends practicality and community. Those quilts are often made collaboratively.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's a social activity, a way to strengthen bonds while creating something essential for the home. And for our listeners, even learning to sew or quilt at a basic level can lead to big savings. Repairing clothes, making your own home textiles. Plus, it's just a wonderful creative outlet, creating something unique and lasting with your own hands.
Okay, this one feels like we're stepping back in time blacksmithing, forging metal into tools, horseshoes.
It's a really ancient skill.
It is, right? In our modern world, why is this still relevant?
Well, it represents a really fundamental level of self-sufficiency, being able to create and repair essential tools from raw materials. In a world that's so reliant on mass-produced disposable goods, blacksmithing is a powerful reminder that we can create and fix things ourselves.
Wow, I never thought of it like that.
It's pretty amazing, right? And while not everyone's going to become a master blacksmith, understanding the basics of working with metal and tool maintenance, that can be super valuable.
Especially if we ever find ourselves in situations where we can't just run to the store.
Exactly. It connects us to that basic human ability to shape and utilize the resources around us.
All right, let's head back to the kitchen. This time for the amazing smell of fresh baked bread.
Nothing beats it.
The Amish are known for their bread. And the article points out it's both healthier and cheaper than the stuff we find in most grocery stores.
Oh, absolutely.
So break that down for our listeners.
Well, when you bake your own bread, you're in control of what goes into it, right? You can skip all the preservatives and additives that are often found in commercial bread.
Those ingredient lists can be scary.
They can be. And not only can this mean a healthier diet for you, but it can also save you a lot of money. Plus, there's just something so satisfying about the whole process. Kneading that dough, the aroma of fresh bread baking.
I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
Right. It's a really rewarding experience.
We talked about quilting, but the article also mentions sewing and mending clothes as a distinctly valuable Amish skill.
And that's important to highlight.
In our world of fast fashion, why is this still so important?
Well, we live in a society where it's often cheaper to just buy new clothes than to repair old ones. But the Amish, they see the value in extending the life of their clothing.
It's so sustainable.
It is. It reduces waste and saves money. For our listeners, even learning basic mending techniques can make a huge difference. It's about appreciating the resources that go into creating our clothes and taking care of the things we have.
Okay, this next one is super interesting. Herbal medicine.
Ah, the power of plants.
The Amish have this extensive knowledge of using herbs for natural remedies. What are some potential benefits there?
Well, their approach to herbal medicine comes from generations of tradition and observation. It's a deep understanding of the healing properties of plants. For our listeners, this could mean exploring natural remedies for those everyday aches and pains.
But of course, there are precautions, right?
Of course. Always. It's essential to approach herbal medicine with respect and caution. Do your research, make sure your sources are credible, and for any serious health conditions, definitely consult with a healthcare professional.
Absolutely.
It's about working with nature, not just randomly picking plants and hoping for the best.
Okay, imagine the power goes out. What's one of the first things most people do?
Scramble for flashlights, candles.
Exactly. The Amish, they often make their own candles. The article talks of this as a really fundamental preparedness skill.
It's such a great example of simple, practical solutions.
So how does this translate for our listeners?
Well, think about it. Being able to create your own light source when the electricity goes out gives you a sense of security and self-reliance. And learning how to do it is pretty straightforward. It connects us to a time when people had to be resourceful and make do with what they had.
Another skill the article highlights is cheese making.
Ah, yes, delicious.
The Amish are known for their amazing cheese.
So good.
Turning simple milk into these flavorful cheeses, I mean, that's like peak self-sufficiency right there.
It really is. And what I love about cheese making is that it's this beautiful blend of science and tradition, understanding fermentation, aging. It's fascinating.
Mm.
For our listeners, learning even basic cheese making can open up this whole new world of homemade dairy. It's about understanding how to transform and preserve food in a really delicious and rewarding way.
Okay, this next one is for anyone who's ever struggled to keep their produce fresh.
Ah, yes, the root cellar.
The article talks about building and maintaining a root cellar for food storage without needing a refrigerator.
It's such a clever idea.
It is, right.
Right.
So how does it work?
Well, it's basically this underground space that's designed to stay cool and humid, perfect for storing all those root vegetables, fruits, and even your canned goods. It utilizes the Earth's natural insulation. It's a low-tech, sustainable way to extend the life of your harvest.
And it doesn't require any electricity.
Nope, all natural food preservation. For anyone who has this space, a root cellar can really boost your food security and cut down on waste. It's a fantastic example of working with nature.
The last skill mentioned in the article is preserving meat.
An essential skill for sure.
You know, through smoking, curing, drying, these sorts of things. Again, all about long-term food storage without needing refrigeration.
These are methods that humans have relied on for centuries to prevent spoilage and make food last. And often they actually enhance the flavor.
It's like a whole art form.
It is. And for our listeners, understanding these techniques can be really valuable. It's not just about emergency preparedness, it's about resourcefulness and knowing how to ensure a stable food supply regardless of the circumstances.
So the article wraps things up by emphasizing this overarching lesson from the Amish. Embracing a simpler, more sustainable way of life. One that's centered on community, family, and those practical skills we've been talking about. It's about that mindset of self-reliance and how that can be such a valuable skill in itself.
I love that point because it's so true. The Amish way of life isn't just about individual skills. It's about a whole way of thinking and living. It's about community interdependence, about consuming mindfully and connecting with the land. And, even if our listeners just adopt elements of this mindset, mending clothes instead of throwing them away, growing a little herb garden that can make a huge difference in how they feel about their lives.
It's about taking control.
Yeah,
exactly. It's interesting because in a world that's constantly telling us to go faster, do more, buy more, the Amish way of life is like this quiet reminder that maybe there's another path.
I think that's a really valuable lesson for all of us.
It really makes you think about which of these skills could be practical for your own life. And hey, if you're intrigued by all this and want to learn more about sustainable living and those kinds of things, I highly recommend checking out HCOandMORE. They've got tons of resources and discussions on these topics.
Absolutely. Great resource.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a question for you to ponder. In our increasingly complex world, could embracing some of these simpler, more practical skills be the key to a more empowered and secure life? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this exploration, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future deep dives into other fascinating topics.
If you like my videos, like and subscribe, and throw a comment down below. Have a great day.